Awaken to hair growth. Awaken to hair growth because there is possibility to get your hair back. Awaken to hair growth because we're not told that we're able to conquer and overcome alopecia. Awaken to hair growth because I want to be a positive light and beacon for you because I've healed my alopecia and now I help others do the same with different types of alopecia, men, women, children of all ages, of all races and ethnicities. Welcome back to the Alopecia Angel podcast, Awaken to Hair Growth. Today, I am talking about the 5 hairstyles that negatively affect your hair loss and alopecia that also promote hair loss. And this is something that, if you have a daughter, if you yourself have different hairstyles that you might want to take into consideration, because if you have hair loss, if you have alopecia, this could be negatively affecting you. But before we get into that today, I wanted to talk about real quick and mention that we have a free training coming up. It is slated for November 30th. It's a 3-day training of the 4 steps on how to reverse your alopecia in less time. And if you have alopecia or a different type of hair loss, you could still take a lot of nuggets of wisdom from this free training. In the show notes, you'll have the link to sign up, and I look forward to seeing you there. So, the 5 hairstyles that negatively affect your hair loss and alopecia. So hair care is a big part of the treatment for alopecia. And unbeknownst to many, hair care, or the way we care for our hair on a daily basis, compounds over time, just like the food, good or bad, that we eat. It can create health or the opposite, right? In terms of hairstyles, which many of my clients are also hairstylists, there are some that I want to address to ensure that you are not making the same mistakes others are in making and creating more havoc on your hair. Hairstyles that you should be avoiding for you and for your children to ensure that your current hair isn't compromised or that your future hair isn't battling hair loss due to these hairstyles include, number 1, would be cornrows or braids. So tight braids or tight cornrows look great. They look very neat, I must admit. They have a polished look to them. However, the constant pulling will also leave your hair thinner and thinner in some, if not all, spots around your head, and especially around, let's say, the forehead area or on the side. And this can look like traction alopecia. And this happens a lot in the African American community or in the Caribbean African community. And so this is something that happens on a constant basis, the cornrows or the braids. But just because, traction alopecia is more prominent in one ethnicity or another, you could still, just by having tight braids or a tight bun, can still damage your hair growth, can still damage the hair follicle, can still damage your hair and your scalp just from the constant pulling. And so that is the number 1 type of hairstyle that you should probably be avoiding. The constant pulling of the cornrows, of the braids, buns would be another one for ballerinas. I had a client in New York. She was a ballerina, a professional ballerina, and the tight bun was always a constant. And so this is something to be avoided as much as possible. Number 2 is using extensions. And if there's anything that I would encourage you to avoid, it would be extensions. This is also a constant pulling and weighing down on your thinning hair. I would also like to classify this as a gimmick because it doesn't help you look better. It doesn't help you look anything. It's like acrylic nails. They look fake and plastic on the outside, and your poor nail underneath is becoming weaker and weaker. It's a lie that it's making your nails feel stronger or thicker, because they're not. And so the same thing happens with extensions. The extensions weigh down your natural hair. And because you may think that you look good on the outside, once it's done, the upkeep, the cost, and the pain to see your hair getting thinner and thinner makes it not worth the struggle at all, because you're still not getting to the root cause. And in Europe, it was amazing to see the amount of extensions that were there. And I was living in a country in Europe where everyone was very frugal. Everyone was very mindful of their money. And yet they would spend thousands of dollars on extensions, just thousands of dollars. And I just couldn't believe it. Just like you see a bad car wash or a good car wash, or just like you see a bad makeup on somebody or a good makeup, you can also see a bad extension and a good extension. And the cheap extensions look horrible, especially when you let them grow out. And it just looks very awful in my opinion. And so extensions are not the way. It's not a solution. And it just continues to look very poor in the way it damages your natural hair. And then also, again, not getting to the root cause. So after so many years with extensions, it just looks very pale in comparison to what's underneath. And I've had numerous friends wear extensions and I've told them to stop. And once they did, because it's an addiction, right? Extensions are an addiction. They give you this boost of confidence once you have them in, but the upkeep is very expensive, and it's just expensive all around, especially if you want, there's different grades of extensions, right? It's like the natural hair or the fake hair. There's all different types, just like wigs. And wigs are also expensive too. And yet it still doesn't give you the root cause, because at the end of the day, you need to take that off. At the end of the day, you're not left with that. At the end of the day, what's left is the hair that you have. And so in order to really promote that hair growth, in order to really promote the better version of yourself, you have to let that go. And extensions is one of those things that I highly recommend that you let go of, because it's not supporting your goal. Your goal is for true natural hair growth, the best version of you. And that's not going to come with extensions. Extensions are just weighing you down. They're weighing your head down, your hair down, and it's not encouraging or helping your hair growth at all. Number 3 is tight ponytails. And I remember as a kid, it was a constant. I had lots of ponytails with bows, and they were on for hours at a time, like 8, 9, 10, 12 hours. And then once the ponytail was loosened or, just came off, like at the crown or the spot where the ponytail was, it hurt so much and it felt bruised by the end of the day. Tight ponytails and buns, just like cornrows and braids, lead to traction alopecia. And traction alopecia is where the hairline recedes, or in the areas of the front of your face start to dwindle and lose the hair. This is the most noticeable on the sides and the entryways of your hairline, but it can also be on the bottom or top portion of your head. So be nice to your hair and leave the tight hairstyles alone. For those of you with traction alopecia, yes, you can reverse this, and in time, hair can grow back with some TLC. So the next part of the hairstyle list that you should want to avoid would be the toppers or clip-ons. Toppers and clip-ons, much like extensions, pull on your hair. Again, it's another gimmick covering up the real solution. You might even experience more hair loss and more thinning due to these products. Toppers and clips need to grab onto the hair, onto your real hair, and many times at the root, thus pulling and weakening the hair. Stop the madness, focus on the hair growth and health, and don't think that these options help, because in reality, they hinder the growth and the strength of your own hair over the long term. If anything, I would say wear a turban, wear a hat, wear something else to cover it up. Don't use the toppers, don't use the clip-ons, don't use the extensions. Those are awful outlets in terms of, feeling like you have hair. Wigs, I to each their own, but I personally do not like wigs. I wouldn't opt for a wig, and I don't think it's the right solution either. And the last but not least of the 5 hairstyles that you should avoid in terms of promoting hair growth would be the updo knot. And this trend I've seen in both males and females. The updo knot seems harmless enough, but it is still pulling the hair, and gravity takes hold and pulls more. The alternative to these hairstyles would be to let your hair down, be free without anything pulling or tightening or hurting the hair, the follicle, the shaft, or the scalp. Other options include claw clips. These don't pull and are easy to take out and keep in. Consistent damage will show sooner than later, and many times, once the damage is done, it's harder to reverse. Other things that can negatively impact your hair growth and the integrity of your hair, well, commercial dyes, like coloring your hair. Henna isn't bad for hair, but could be bad for your health. Keratin treatments have formaldehyde in them, so those are awful for you. Straightening treatments are bad. Perms are bad. Relaxers are bad as well. The chemicals alone are nasty, and these can cause respiratory issues and allergic reactions in the scalp, eyes, and the hair. Other risks include hair loss at the site. I had a client call in for a consultation. She told me her alopecia started 10 years ago. that back then she was using many kinds of treatments and relaxers to have her hair done in the salon. This is a problem too, because these chemicals, regardless of how long ago you have used them or stopped using them, are more than likely still in your body, creating negative side effects, not just to your hair, but to your overall health. In order to reverse the damage, diet and lifestyle needs to be changed. This client has receding hairline and entryways into the hair that are much bigger than normal. She's tried many things and nothing has helped. In order to reverse retraction alopecia, diet and lifestyle need to be implemented. Yes, change can happen with consistent effort. Note, just because the treatment is in the salon does not mean it's safe. Did you know that there are over 90,000 chemicals in our environment and food supply that the FDA doesn't regulate? Massive amounts of toxic chemicals go on to be used in our beauty products, food supply, and beyond without regulation. The EU does a little better in this, not allowing about 2,000 chemicals ingredients to be used, whereas the USA only bans 11 of the 90,000 chemicals or ingredients. It's better to be a cautious consumer when it comes to hot trends and treatments, as more than likely it will cause adverse side effects in the long run. Examples include Monat, Diva Curl, keratin treatments, and the latest Tresemme. These were all people and companies who have lawsuits against them for hair loss. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, Ben Franklin. And I completely agree to that. So when it comes to hairstyle, fast, free, and just full is the best option. Let it loose and let it run wild. If you have big curly hair like me, it's just let it run. And if you have straight hair, like let it down. If you have wavy hair, the same, let it down and let it be free. I think some clips and like soft braids are possible, but anything tight or really hurting your scalp, I'd say no. Just because, there's always going to be repercussion with that. And so those are your top 5 hairstylists to modify and to avoid as much as possible during alopecia, and even without alopecia, even without hair loss, you should still probably avoid all these hairstyles as they could create hair loss or hair issues in the future. I hope this has helped you, and I look forward to talking to you in the next episode. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Alopecia Angel podcast, a positive light in healing alopecia. You can do this and we can help. Spread the word that reversing alopecia is possible by telling your friends and family.